came back to my home state of Michigan to try to get involved in this industry. There's a lot of basic science that needs to be done, and our federal government has suppressed this chemistry for the last 40 years, basically. So we're really in a state. We don't have experts in this field, but I am an expert in organic chemistry. So I'm going to try to present to you a crash course in the chemistry of cannabis testing issues, and this is all, my own opinions, my own information, so if you want to throw rotten eggs, aim them at me, not Ben or the representative. But we're going to try to blast through kind of a crash course in chemistry here and get you up to speed on what I think are the most important elements of testing and how we might want to go about this. Last time, Representative Callton mentioned that there were some quotes about cannabis in the Bible, so I wanted to start with a little inspiration here, a few specific phrases. There are a lot of general phrases referring to a plant literally translated as fragrant cane. And scholars dispute whether this is cannabis or another plant, Acorus calamus. So a lot of dispute. We're not sure that necessarily the plant that grew up on Solomon's grave was medical marijuana. It seems like it was, but we do have some other more appropriate quotes here that really fit the bill. Going back to the beginning of the First Testament, God said, "Behold, I have given you every herb-bearing seed which is upon the face of all the earth." That's pretty clear. That would include cannabis, if you ask me. From Ezekiel, "And I will raise up for them a plant of renown, and they shall be no more consumed with hunger in the land, neither bear the shame of the heathen anymore." And issues hunger. A lot of us are starting to realize now that the vast majority of the medical impact of the cannabis plant comes from eating it, from consuming it. Smoking it is just the tip of the iceberg. That's the least effective thing you can do medicinally with it. So this concept of hunger and feeding people is a relevant issue as well. And then finally from the New Testament, Matthew, "Therefore by your fruits you will know them." And so I think this is a really amazing point about this international herb. It brings people across all class divisions, all race divisions. I've seen this plant bring together people that you would never imagine could be in the same planet together, basically. So really has the power to unify people, and I think we all have a passion for this plant, and that can bring us together, and we need to work on our unity around that. Okay, so since we'll know them by their fruits, how well do we know our own fruits? I'm going to start with a bit of serious misinformation here. The first thing is most people believe, laymen believe, that cannabis plant contains THC. This is misinformation. So if we go back to U.S. patent from 2010, so just so you know, I'm not making this up. This is in the patent literature. This was vetted by our federal government. Fairly complex and exquisitely controlled biosynthetic pathway produces the cannabinoids from fairly common starting materials, terpenoid starting materials, phenolic starting materials, creates these two halves and couples them together into CBGA, cannabigerolic acid A. Okay, some of you have heard of CBG. The important point here is that all of these cannabinoids we're going to see in the plant are actually in their acid form. The cannabis plant does not produce THC. Okay, this is an important point because THC is a controlled substance. And an actual matter of fact, that raw plant matter that you have on your plant does not contain any of that controlled substance. This is a very key point. After that CBG is made, that's kind of the mother precursor. It's then enzymatically converted to CBDA, so CBD acid. And the acid refers to this little portion up here. That's converted to THC acid, and finally, non-enzymatically by heat or storage decomposition, we form CBN acid. Okay, so that's kind of the major cast of characters of what's actually in the plant. So no THC, but certain plants now, modern strains, produce up to 35% dry weight cannabinoic acids. This is absolutely astounding. There's no other plant that I'm aware of that produces anywhere in the ballpark. People smoking 30 years ago would have been astounded if you gave them a plant that was 10 times weaker than that. 2% was very potent in the 80s. So all of these compounds that I've just shown to you are not psychoactive, and they're not controlled substance. In fact, it's recently discovered in 2010 that they have unprecedented anti-inflammatory activity. So drugs like Vioxx pharmaceuticals have been taken off the market. We now have a plant remedy that can do a better job than that. And the interesting part is, again, I need to stress to you that this is patented. I know a lot of you are probably holding up your hands saying, wait a minute, that's ridiculous. The federal government says marijuana is a Schedule I narcotic. Right? By definition, it has no medicinal use. Okay, so how can that same federal government grant a patent, a monopoly, on the use of that substance for medicine, which the other part of the government says has no medicinal purpose? Okay, that's a question I can't answer. You'll have to ask Eric Holder. But the fact remains these are fantastic medicinal substances that are present in the plant that are largely untapped, basically. Interestingly, because they're non-psychoactive, you can accept a very large dose of them, up to 1.5 grams a day, basically, as a therapeutic dose for preventing or treating cancer. Okay, so that's where it all starts. That's the actual chemistry of the plant. That's what the plant produces. Next question is, what goes on? What happens after that? So I would call this when good fruits go bad. So if you take that plant material and you heat it, we get a reaction called decarboxylation chemically. It's been called activation or a number of other terms, but what's actually happening here is on heating, ideally around 140 C, we lose carbon dioxide, decarboxylation, and we end up with the neutral THC, the controlled substance, the psychoactive material. If you then, once this molecule gets into your system, our bodies metabolize it, okay? And the first thing it does, it gets oxidized to 11-hydroxy-THC. Okay? And a very important point here is that this is about 4 to 5 times more psychoactive than THC. Okay? So another reason why eating your cannabis is far more effective than smoking it, passes through the liver first time, and your body converts it to a much more psychoactive material, much more active material. And then further, we excrete it out in this form, the 9-carboxylic acid. So key point on the last slide, I was saying that the dosage of the plant is up to 1.5 grams of cannabinoids every day. But curiously, THC, 10 milligrams for an average adult is a psychoactive dose. That will pretty much make you want to sit down, no matter what's your body weight. Major point here is this substance has absolutely no known LD50. LD50 is a pharmacology term, lethal dose 50%. So that's the quantity you have to give a rat, for example, to kill 50% of the population. Okay? No one has ever been able to determine that number for THC because it is not toxic. Okay? So this is a major issue. There is no other drug we deal with in the pharmaceutical industry that has no LD50. A bottle of aspirin will kill you. Okay? So this is far safer than aspirin. This is the safest thing we have in our pharmacological toolbox. Again, eating causes this formation of this more potent metabolite, so a good reason to eat your cannabis. It lasts longer, it's more active. Now to get into the testing. Primarily what police labs have been interested in is screening for THC, this molecule right here. If they can find that in your blood sample or your urine sample, they can demonstrate that you are intoxicated at the time. That's what's required, is to show presence of THC, the psychoactive molecule. Until last year, most police labs actually just looked for this metabolite. Since that's not psychoactive, it's been established in court that they can't pull you over at a traffic stop and show you have that in your urine. That doesn't mean anything. You could have smoked 2 months ago, that may still be there. Okay, so police labs, for legal reasons, are mainly interested in showing that people have this in their system. That's the main concern. That's what their labs are set up to determine. Private industry, and there are a number of labs, actually a rapidly shrinking number, but private industry is more concerned with screening for, historically, primarily THC. Everyone has been told that's the active ingredient in cannabis. Okay, so most people are looking for this. Most growers want a number of how much THC is in their plant, which is really how much that plant could produce. A newer thing that people are starting to look at is THC acid, because now we realize that this is a very effective medicine, tolerated in very high doses, effective against a number of forms of epilepsy, cancers. Now people would like to get their hands on this, and so we're taking it back a step and trying to develop methods to quantitate the acids as well. Okay, so a couple practical terms, and most of you are probably aware of this, but how do we know? Kind of the 2 major ways that you would go into a lab and determine what's present in any mixture is a group of techniques known as chromatography. And this is just a method for separating molecules from mixture. The 2 main flavors of this that are practiced for cannabis are gas chromatography, and in this procedure you're separating molecules in the gas phase. Okay? It's very efficient, it's a very rapid process. You can slam through a bunch of them in an hour. But the key point here is that these cannabinoic acids are not volatile. Okay? So we can't directly observe what's in the plant with a GC experiment. And that's why most people believe that the plant contains THC, because for years they would analyze the plant using this material, which is designed with a hot injector port so that decarboxylation occurs efficiently, and you can measure and quantitate the THC. Okay, so you can't directly observe the cannabinoic acids by this method. But nonetheless, it is the industry standard. There's probably 20 labs in California doing this, a number in the Netherlands, Europe.